Hey guys, IcyCat here. Today's operator profile in-depth is going to take a look at the Spetsnaz defender Tachanka. His deployable turret system helps bring the pain for the attacking team and helps lock down and secure defensive areas. We're going to take a look at him in depth now. Tachanka is a defender, and as such he has access to the SAS G12 semi-automatic shotgun, the 9x19 VSN submachine gun, or choice of two 9mm handguns, the GSH-18 or the PMM. The PMM is going to have higher damage but lower ammo capacity, and the other one will have a little bit less damage but higher ammo capacity. I'm going to recommend the higher capacity GSH-18 and the 9x19 submachine gun, although the semi-automatic shotgun is pretty good as well. For the gadget systems, I'm going to recommend barbed wire over deployable shield, and I'm going to explain why in just a moment here. As you can see, I try to set up this deployable shield, and my idea is going to be to put the turret system behind it to kind of give me additional protection. And that's not going to work real well because what you need to do is have about a good 2 meters of open space in front of you before you have any obstructions like walls, furniture, shields, anything like that. And what that does is it creates a line of sight because it's so far forward of you that you have to shoot over the top of it, and you lose about 60% of your screen space, and your increase in defense is hit too heavily by what you lose in offense capability. Seeing that, I'm going to break down the shield and move it a little further forward at a lower elevation. And this works a little bit, but the coverage that I then get is like it's going to protect maybe like part of my shins and not much else, and it's just really the payoff isn't worth it. I'd wish they'd allow us to put it closer to items like shields or furniture or walls, things like that. I understand they're trying to make it so he's not too overprotected and so that you can't take him out, but he winds up being a little hard to use for that because then he's a little too vulnerable and too exposed and too immobilized. So that's a bit of a detriment. When you're playing as him, you're going to want to set up your perimeter defense first. Go ahead and put down your reinforced panels, barricades, barbed wire, deployable shields, anything like that first. Because once you get on the turret system, you're probably not going anywhere. That's his main function, is to sit there and cover an area, and you do that by being attached to it and watching. Now, it doesn't have to be just Tachanka that does it. You can put out the deployable turret and allow anybody on your team to go ahead and hop onto it. I don't know if any of the attackers can hop onto it as well. They can do some things, like they can take Rook's armor. I don't know if they can actually engage his turret or not, but it's going to be pointed in the wrong direction for them to make much use of it anyway, so I wouldn't worry about that a whole lot. What you're going to want to do with him, though, is rather than the deployable shield system, you go ahead and use your barbed wire. And what you're going to do is you're going to create slowed lanes of fire by putting it into a room when they have to cross through an open doorway. And you don't want to put it so that it's exposed from the opposite side so that they can break the barbed wire from safety. You want them to have to enter the room and step into the barbed wire and thus step into your lane of fire. When they're moving slower, you can take them out and get a good kill that way. So here I'm going to expose a big problem with Tachanka, and that's valid placement. I'm looking for this tiny white pixel to show me that he has a valid placement, that there's enough clear space around him, and I wasn't finding it. I figure I'm going to go stick him in the corner here where I have these reinforced panels, and again, I'm having trouble finding it. I have to step way out here before I get valid placement on my turret system, and now I lose the protection of sticking myself deep into a corner in the first place with those reinforced panels. It's just so wide open out here this far into the room. So I'm going to go back to where I was before and try to set it up over there by moving the turret system. And you're going to see the same problem present itself. I'm going to look for this tiny white pixel. I'm not going to be able to find it. In this huge area, you'd think I could find an easy spot to set up the turret, but it's not letting me. Looking for that tiny white pixel, you know, it's like, where is it? Where is it? It's hard to spot, even when you know to look for it. I mean, it's just, there needs to be an easier dynamic put into place here. My thought process would be something like, instead of that little white pixel, maybe a area of effect ring that shows the valid placement. And it would be red for invalid and gold for a good placement zone. So you can see here I've got a 90-degree coverage area going between left and right, and I've achieved that by locking it down on a 45-degree angle. And that's very important because you can only pan the gun 45 degrees in either direction. So if you want that 90-degree coverage arc, you've got to put it on a 45 to your intended targets. I'm going to display that here when I set up out in this hallway as well. So some good ways to set up with Tachanka are to combo him with Pulse. Pulse will let you know when there's a target on the other side of a wall, and you can rip a hole right through walls, right through barricaded doors, no problem. And you can also create some interesting sight lines with Tachanka that way by opening up your own holes and making new lines of sight down hallways or other things that are normally blocked off by a wall. But Pulse is a good combo for him because he'll help you spot the targets that are coming. Jaeger's also a good combo because one of the most effective ways to get Tachanka out is to throw grenades in by him. And Jaeger will help kind of take the heat off of him in that regard. And it's good because Tachanka will usually set up over the objective area, or at least pretty close to it. So you're probably going to get double coverage in that by protecting both Tachanka and the objective at the same time. Another good one to combo with him is Castle, because he can reinforce doorways behind him, or Capkin, who can also protect his flank with laser tripwires. That's important because he's so immobilized, he can easily get flanked. That's his biggest weakness, is the ability to get flanked. I would say the most direct counter-operative to Tachanka is going to be Fuse. His cluster charge grenade system can pump a room full of explosives, and with his inability to get out of the way quickly or go for cover, he's going to be a sitting duck for that. Another one that's good to go after him, surprisingly enough, is Twitch. You wouldn't think Twitch would be, but he's attached to this pivot point, and you can get at least 2 dependable hits on him before he can detach himself. And he's going to have to detach himself, otherwise you're just going to chip away at his health slowly. So Twitch can easily get Tachanka off of his turret system and free up the entry into the room by removing him. So as you can see here, I've set up on the 45-degree angle in this hallway as well. This gives me that 90-degree angle of fire between these 2 doorways, which is really beneficial. If you don't understand that and you place your turret in an awkward position, you're not going to get those lines of fire that you need. One other thing I'd like to see them do for Tachanka is give him some kind of armor-piercing rounds on his gun. Now, the interesting thing about AP rounds is they don't do a whole lot to unarmored targets in the first place because a bullet doesn't deform like a normal bullet does. It's not going to do that much extra damage to regular people. But what it would do is be like an anti-shield operator at that point because it would penetrate shields and cause damage. Now, they'd be lower damage because they would have penetrated the shield first and they would have lost some velocity. So, you know, they wouldn't necessarily be just slaughtering shields, but they could at least do some damage to them. And currently, there's no specific anti-shield operator, and I think Tachanka could make an excellent candidate for that. Well, that's been our in-depth profile of Tachanka. Tomorrow, we're going to take a look at Castle in-depth. If you haven't liked and subscribed so far, go ahead and do that now to make sure that you stay up to date on all the latest content. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.